Live. Hi, this is Kristen Slice with Empowered Lab Communications, and today we are talking to Mark Engle. Say hi, Mark.
Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Good, good. Mark has been very patient with us as we're trying to get technology up and running. For those of you who aren't familiar with Empowered Lab, the majority of our content is actually through podcasts, but we thought we'd switch it up today since Mark is phoning in all the way from California and try to do something a little bit different to see if we can kind of get some more variety going in our content. So thank you, Mark, for tolerating the technical challenges here as we figure out both our video and our audio.
Oh, you're certainly welcome. I'm excited about our meeting.
Thanks. Well, Mark, I always start every podcast, if you could just give a little bit of a background on introducing yourself and who you are. I know we know each other from several different areas, so I want to let the people know who you are. So if you could give your brief bio.
Sure. I loved your little tagline on the interview, goat farmer turned banker turned consultant.
Those
I've done all
are
those
only the
things.
titles I knew. Those were the kinder official titles, you know?
But I actually have an agricultural background. I was raised on a citrus farm for a period of my life and went to Cal Poly, which was an ag school in Pomona and San Luis. So when I got done with that, I went to college into the dairy business and a banking career. And about 20 years ago, I discovered I could share a lot with other people that I'd learned in small business endeavors. So I got into the consulting side of it, working with the SBDC, which is a great program. I assume you're still involved in that
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
Good.
Absolutely. Well, I have a meeting in 30 minets with the boss, so we'll see. You never know. But
Okay.
from what I understand right now, yeah, we're all good.
Well, anyway, the consulting side of it's really been an exciting part of the venture for me. I just enjoy working with clients, seeing people realize their dreams, and so working with small businesses of all types, they all have common characteristics that we can help them break the code and be successful in creating business endeavors.
Well, and I think it's interesting because when I was thinking about questions I wanted to ask you and things about this interview, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about my time working at the SBDC is just the breadth of businesses that we kind of work with across the board. And I know you have an even larger group of businesses that you've worked with because you worked both in an urban center and a rural center, plus you've done consulting, kind of across the board. What would you say is kind of the biggest differences that you see between that kind of urban versus rural and small business territory, or do you really feel like, the challenges that you see across the board are fairly common?
Well, actually, they are fairly common challenges. I think sometimes in the rural areas, they feel like they're far away from the center of the universe, and so they don't necessarily have the same feeling of connectivity that
Yeah.
we had in the city. But I think that's kind of a false sense of reality, and they have today the capability of doing anything that you can do in the city using technology as an assist. In the marketing area, we discovered this like 20 years ago. J. Conrad Levinson did a book called Guerrilla Marketing, and we kind of began to think about how the internet and online tools were the friend of the small business. He called it the great equalizer in his
Yeah.
book, because you could be at your kitchen table with your bunny slippers on, your hair in curlers, and competing against a Fortune 500 company doing the same thing you are.
Well, and I think too that to a certain degree, some tools, especially social media and things like that, small business actually does better than a lot of the big brands because by their nature, they're supposed to be individuals connecting. And frankly, big brands, most of them still haven't figured that out and still have their, intern blasting kind of branded messages where small businesses are much better at that kind of one-on-one connection, those that do it well.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for a small business to be unique and to emphasize what they can do really well, which is service. So if you're working for a large company, you have so many restrictions in that category. For instance, a retailer that can provide specialized products can compete with Walmart today,
Yeah.
and through online marketing, through shipping overnight using a number of different services, they can be very, very competitive with Amazon.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say, the service piece of it, because I actually had bounced around in my head a blog around the idea of social media for small businesses. I actually think it is a misnomer to even call it a marketing tool. Done well, a customer service tool, if you look at it more from that focus versus a active lead generator constantly, I think that businesses, when you frame it in your head as I'm going to connect with the people I'm already connected with, especially Facebook, I'm going to build relationship and I'm going to communicate those things better. I think that's easier because when they think marketing, they think, oh, hundreds of leads of new people pouring in, and that's not really what social media is, and why a lot of people get kind of frustrated around those tools.
Right. There's the small business connectivity to social media is just one of the things that they need to put together in form of tactics, and it's really interesting how uh, small businesses have taken to social media,
Mm-hmm.
and the next step is to get more involved in mobile. And the way people are accessing small business services today is more with mobile technology than the desktops.
Yeah.
And so that's the next big frontier. And from what I've been reading, small businesses will probably do better in the mobile media front as far as competing with big companies than they have with social media, because they just haven't really kind of gotten the picture on social media how they can make it work for them.
Yeah. Well, if you had to say next to marketing, you mentioned, the most common challenges that you see small businesses come up to, and you said, marketing is one of the strategies or the tactic. What would you say is the next biggest common denominator, common challenge that you see small business facing?
It's really in the area of finance and
Yeah.
operations in my mind,
Hmm.
and I use the word operations with finance because I think small businesses have a lot of hats they have to wear, and it's
Hmm.
really difficult for them to control what needs to be controlled. They don't know what they don't know. Sometimes just keeping up with the checkbook and with customer orders is a daunting task without looking at, okay, where's my business going? Am I growing? Am I shrinking? Is this product doing well versus the product B and product C? They all those things have to be looked at in running a small business. So my biggest challenge to small businesses today is not describing the numbers as much as the 5 to 10 things that you control that are analytical in your small business that allow you to do better.
Hmm.
So it really is an integration of systems. If you take the operations, the finance, the marketing, there's some really neat ways that small business today can integrate all those things and provide regular feedback in that 5 to 10 areas that they can really control and affect change.
And you're talking about kind of KPIs or key performance indicators. Is that?
Yeah, into you start people in small business, their eyes glass over when you start
Well,
talking about
that's what
performance
I was totally
indicators.
going to say. That was my next comment. Was
But
whenever
when
you
but when
talk
you
about KPIs, people get panicky because and to a
yeah,
certain
it's
degree, they're
scary. What is that?
yeah,
It's
exactly,
like
and it's
predictive analytics. You throw
yeah.
that word out and people think you're talking science fiction. But what I'm talking about is integrating your accounting system with your ordering system, with your marketing, your sales force, and all those things can be done today with fairly affordable products on the cloud that allow a business to utilize that data.
Yeah.
Another term that's kind of scary that's thrown out a lot these days is big data.
Mhm.
Corporations use big data, and what does that really mean? In terms of Google, and thank you Google for providing the Hangout this morning. They provide a lot of data. People are concerned about losing their privacy, but they provide a lot of data to drive products. Like
Mhm.
when you get your map out and you see that you're running into a traffic jam, that's data that comes from cell phones of people that are slowing down where they
Making
should be
waves.
going 65, they're going 25. So Google tells you, Kristen, avoid the Highway 260, take the
Yeah.
101 instead. And that's big data. But to small business, they still have the advantage of being able to do some of these things by integrating their systems. And
Can you give
the
like
mobile
a
thing we talked
finite?
about, when
Yeah.
the employees can do their sales calls on Salesforce using their mobile phone or their tablet, it just makes them that much more productive, and you as the owner can follow what they're doing without having them come into the office all the time. They can be out selling where they need to sell in the trenches.
Can you give a finite example of a KPI? Because I think that's a piece of the challenge is we say KPI, it sounds big and scary.
Yeah,
You know,
key
it's big.
performance indicator is just something that drives your business. In the
Mhm.
past, we used to manage businesses by financial data that we would get from the accounting department. So we get a profit and loss statement. Are we profitable? We'd look at ratios. What's our
My
current
doorbell.
asset
Sorry, someone's
compared to
here.
current liabilities? Those kinds of things. But today you want to look, because the past isn't a good indicator anymore. You want to look at things that will predict what your business is going to do in the future as a result. So taking a look at things like purchase orders, activity, you can actually time people from the moment they enter your store to the time they approach the register. There's all kinds of ways of measuring things that will help you measure whether you're doing the right job and how you can affect change. There are also a lot of things out there that you can measure but have no impact on being able to make changes, and those are the ones you want to stay away from. Just because it would be nice to know is not enough to mean that you should build that into your key performance indicators. So one of the terms, by the way, I've been throwing out with clients a lot more is dashboard. You wouldn't drive a car and not be able to look at the dashboard, right? Well,
Yeah.
why would you drive a business and not be able to look at where you're going? Same thing. And if you put that in the terms of an airplane, it becomes particularly scary because that's when you fly into mountains and buildings.
Well, one of the benefits that I have found in working with KPIs, because no way that it's such a scary, monumental task, and I know that all of us small business owners, we're in the moment, we're trying to figure it out. The idea of like pulling back and looking and figuring out these giant data pieces and what are my KPIs, it just sounds like another to-do thing that I have no interest in doing, even if we understand the value for it. However, I have found, especially with my female clients, I think women business owners in particular, the benefit of a KPI or looking at those numbers is it gets you far enough away from your business that you're not micromanaging or you're not feeling overwhelmed by all of the pieces that you sometimes manage, whereas you can just focus on, okay, I don't need to know everything about the business. I just need these 5 things and I can know everything is healthy and functional. I don't need to know, every medical test that my body could have. I just need to know, am I sleeping, am I eating, and pooing? If I'm doing those 3 things, then we'll count it a win and walk away. But it helps kind of get out of that whirl and kind of have some focus with those KPIs.
Right. The other thing that you have to have people look at is, can I do this on the beach in San Diego from my tablet? Because a lot of times you look at those things you control and they depend on you being there, and that can be a problem as well. You want to make this business run with or without you, but you have to find metrics or measures that you can actually use uh, from the beach in San Diego, and that's tricky. It requires that you think outside yourself a little bit.
So I do have to ask you questions specifically being a banker, because I think this will probably be one of the only or few times that I actually get anyone who's actually worked in a bank willing to discuss uh, things with me on an open platform. So tell me a little bit, I know that small businesses, when it comes to cash flow and it comes to working with banks, it sounds really scary. It's another one that kind of has a little bit of mystery around it. As a banker, what was your experience working with small business owners, and what is it that you wish that they would have known more when you were there?
Well, yeah, I would say former banker, by the way. I've
Former banker.
actually, it's been over 20 years since I was a banker, so I'm no longer part of that club.
See, you say that,
However,
and
I
I know
still,
having worked at you, the way you look at financials is still a
yeah,
way
you
that
never lose
nobody else
that.
would ever look at
Yeah,
those
you never
things.
lose
So,
that. I watch bankers look at the business plans that clients present, and they read the first 2 pages, and then they go right to the numbers.
financials,
That's
yep.
just the way bankers are hardwired. I guess, and I'll probably never lose that trait. But one of the things that working with clients in financing, I find, is that they look at it like you have one time that you can be at bat, and you either got to hit a home run, or you're out of the ball game. And
Mhm.
the fact is, it's like dating. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince. And in the banking business, you'll knock on a lot of doors and hear no. And you won't even get real answers of why it's no. It might be that you're looking to start a restaurant, and the loan officer that you're talking with hates restaurants, but obviously they can't say that, so they tell you no.
Yeah.
And they might say something like, well, you're just not showing the cash flow that we want, or they leverage. You're too highly leveraged. What does that mean?
Yeah.
But I've found that you got to be
You,
persistent.
not
You got a
me.
lot of knock on a lot of doors, and you learn something with each time that somebody tells you no as well. If you are persistent in how you do that, so you have to ask, okay, why did I get turned down? And then when they say it's because you're too highly leveraged, you say, well, what else? If
Hmm.
that, given that, what else would cause you to turn it down? And by the time you've asked that what else 3 times, you're probably going to find the real answer, which is the final one. When they
Yeah.
finally have to dig deep and say, well, it's because your credit report, and I'm not supposed to say anything.
Yeah.
Or it's because my boss, the regional manager, doesn't do restaurant loans, or whatever the real reason is, it won't come out until you've asked that 2 or 3 times, what else?
Do you think that all small businesses need cash flow from a bank at some point in time?
Not necessarily. Things are changing in that front. Banks are still the number one source of funding for small business,
Hmm.
but well, they're actually number two. Number one is the 3 F's: friends, family, and fools, and the people that you have in your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
But banks are then number two, and then behind that, rapidly approaching as a potential or other funding sources. Crowdfunding has been given green light on equity funding, although they're still working out the bugs. So that may take a couple more years before it becomes real uh, uh, plentiful or easier to access. But there are a lot of
I think
quasi
it's funny
banks
that
out
you
there today.
that you separate out the 3 F's in crowdfunding as though those aren't the same thing.
Yeah, they're not the same things, and but there's quasi lenders out there. Look at the lendingclub.com,
Yeah.
and you'll see that's like a crowdfunding type of source. It's lenders accessing projects, but it's done through another legal or means, and
Hmm.
so they're more like a lender. But there are ways for small businesses to get guaranteed loans, to get help from the government as well. Those are, again, an area that you have to be part of the company's mission. So, find out how friendly your institution is for dealing with minorities, women, your type of business. And again, you only find that out by knocking on doors, getting to know people, networking. Um, Believe it or not, people are afraid to talk about money with their friends and family, and
People are
yet
terrified,
they should. They
and
need
they
to
and they're
talk
really
it up
terrified.
with their colleagues.
Not, I was gonna say, not only their friends and family, but even fellow business owners. And
Yeah.
I know that you go to lots of networking things, and the question becomes, when do you need cash? And I think that so many small business owners, half the time they either look at it and they think that getting a loan is such bad business that they're not willing to talk about it, or it's somehow supposed to be this really private engagement. There's not really a lot of public discourse about what does it mean to get a loan, what does that process look like, when do you even know that you need to get a loan, in a lot of ways.
Well, most small businesses know they need a loan when they run out of money,
I know. Which is
but that's
usually
usually
a
too
great
late.
position.
That's where, again, if you have metrics where you're following in your business, where you can kind of determine some of these things, one of them might be very well that you look at cash flow going out a week. And a lot of times people advise small businesses to do monthly profit and loss, but that may not be enough for your business. So
Yeah.
you might need to actually look a week out. What are my receipts for the next week? What are my disbursements? And what's my cash position going to be in the next week, so that if you do need to do any borrowing, you can get right on it. I wouldn't say a week is a good thing. That can be a really tight time frame, but it also can allow you to make some crucial decisions, such as maybe not paying a vendor, calling them and telling them that you're not going to be able to pay them for a week, and getting their cooperation so that they don't put you on COD, or give you a bad report on the Dun& Bradstreet report or whatever.
So you've worn a lot of hats. Currently you have the consultant hat. You've been an academic. You've worked with people who are both consultants and counselors, and we have lots of different titles along the way. When you have to classify different people who work with small businesses, what do you see as being the main difference between like an academic and a counselor or a consultant or a business owner for that matter?
Oh, that's actually a good question, because there is a big difference between a a person that is advising you and a person who is advocating for you. And I think that you will find that there are counselors and advisors that are advocates, but the approach is a little bit different. And I think that I always tried to serve as an advocate for clients, still do,
An
uh,
advocate meaning
and
that you
that is that
introduce them to people and
going the next
resources?
step beyond just providing the advice, to helping source um, people that can help with the problem, putting things together. I called it connecting the dots, because
Okay.
sometimes the big picture isn't apparent until you've helped with a little bit more connecting the dots. And that's difficult for a consultant because they're trying to eliminate any liability. If you become an advocate, you might cross that line from time to time. But I think a good consultant for your business can be an advocate. And so that can be your banker, that can be your consultant, it can be somebody that's in the same industry that you are that cares about your success, advisory board members. All those people should be chosen for being advocates as opposed to just supporters.
Yeah. So I have one question as we kind of got to wrap up here.
Okay.
Especially in the last couple of months, I've come to the realization of how absolutely insane it was for you to hire me when you did, and what a huge risk that really was. As I get further and further out looking back at it, I'm thinking, Mark was working in this type of organization. I probably didn't fit in that type of organization, especially the one at the time. I mean, I think you had the foresight to see where you wanted it to go, and so I think I might have been more in alignment there. But you kind of took a risk in hiring someone that didn't look like an organization that you were in, and I think that that's really innovative in a lot of ways. So first, I have to say thank you, because it's been critical in my
You're
life.
welcome.
But second, at the time, were you aware that as from an HR perspective, that you were trying to create something, or was it just a risk and you went, you know what, I have no other options and Kristen's standing at the door, so I'll go ahead and let her in?
Well, I never really kind of fit the HR uh, thing into I never really worked really well with HR from day one there. But one of my objectives was to try to change the organization. When I walked in the door, there were a bunch of senior statesman type consultants that were not advocates for clients. They, by and large.
Mhm.
And so we needed to change the organization with people that could play that role. And the area that of social media, of marketing, and training slash advocacy was something that we needed. So I would do it over again in a heartbeat, Kristen.
Oh,
You've been
thanks.
a great consultant, and I'm hoping that this podcast business that you're doing is very successful, and
Thank you.
appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Thank you. Yes, it's been fun to be a little bit more creative and kind of get out there and see different. Where our goal with this type of content is to give a platform to talk about stuff that people aren't talking about. And it's not just about marketing; it's about all the other pieces that are out there, and allow people to kind of share their experience and learn from each other. So Thank you so much for joining me today, Mark. I appreciate it, and I look forward to chatting with you more in the future. This has been Kristen Slice and the Empowered Lab podcast. Make sure to check out our website, empoweredlab-com.com. So make sure to check us out, find us on Facebook, connect with us, let us know your story and what you'd like to hear more about. Thanks, Mark, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much.